Hello! I'm back! As you can see, I'm not in my old room anymore, so we have a lot to catch up on. So if you don't know me, my name is Lynn, and I am now a third-year student at the University of Guelph, taking Management, Economics, and Finance. I'm also an international student from Ohio, and I currently live in South Residence again. I also work for Residence Life staff as a cluster leader, which is why I live in residence still when I'm in my third year. So now that you're caught up a little bit, I do have a room tour coming out very soon, but this video specifically is about the move-in experience now that we're getting back to all residences open again on the University of Guelph campus. I've previously made a video about my move-in experience from 2019, which was a normal year, and then to 2020, which was the start of the pandemic, at least in Canada. And so now I wanted to update you and give you a little bit of insight into what move-in looked like, specifically in South Residence, but also generally on the University of Guelph campus in the fall 2021 move-in time. So like I said, I do live in South Residence, but I'm also Residence Life staff. So I did not move in at the same time that all of the first year students moved in this year to Maritime, which is where I live. I actually moved in 2 weeks early so that we could do residence training, Residence Life staff training. And so for me, I had 2 weeks of being on campus with no students here at all. Basically, the only people in my building were the other RAs that were also getting training, as well as my manager and our community assistant. All of those people live in residence with the first year students. Most of us are also students, but our manager is a real adult. She's really great. Anyway, enough about my manager. This year, the rest of the students' move-in was spread out over, I think it was 3 days. So it was over a nice long weekend, and then right after that, orientation week started. Orientation week is actually 9 days long. But yeah, basically students moved in at scheduled time slots on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think it was. Might have been Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But anyway, 3 days in a row, you had a scheduled time slot, and you moved all your stuff in. Now, just like in 2020, you could only have, I think it was 2 people helping you move in. So the student plus 2 parents, plus 2 friends, plus a parent and a sibling. Any combination of 2 people, you were allowed to have the student plus 2 in the building at any given point. And it should have been, it wasn't always, but it should have been the same 2 people coming in. So if you have 4 sisters, not all of them were allowed to help you move in, although I'm sure some of that happened. And basically, in Maritime specifically, you would pull into the parking lot that's closest to Maritime, unload all of your stuff onto the sidewalk, run in and grab your keys, and then take all of your stuff upstairs as fast as possible. You did only have an hour time slot to move in, but move-in is a long process, and not everything is moved in all at once. It was just that for crowd control and tracking purposes, you're supposed to only have your 2 other people in the building for that 1 hour that you were moving your stuff in. Comparing this with my experience in East Village, helping the students move in last year, very similar. You would pull up in your car directly to the East Village townhouses, and you were supposed to have 1 hour to move your stuff in, but when you live in East Village, there's only 4 other people in your building, so it's a lot easier to fudge those lines a little bit and keep moving in, keep having your parents in the building for more than your hour time slot. While in South Residence, I know at least in Maritime, we have 550 students all living in one complex, all using the same door to go in and out, so it is a little bit harder to stay past your time slot without people getting a little mad at you for taking up their space that they want to be using for their move-in time slots. Unlike in the pre-pandemic years, there are no orientation volunteers who were there helping students take all of their items upstairs. So unfortunately, if you were moving in by yourself, you had to take all the trips yourself. For example, in 2019, if you had a normal move-in experience, an orientation volunteer would gather all of your stuff out of your car with you and help you run it up to your room as fast as possible. And that was for the purpose of getting cars out of the parking lot so that move-in times could keep rolling, and no one was staying in the parking lot for like 5 hours, clogging up a spot when they'd already moved all their stuff in, or if they were like still taking one at a time trips, one for the lamp, one for the mirror, one for my shoes. That's really inefficient. So orientation volunteers used to help students do that, but because of COVID, we weren't allowed to touch any of your stuff, so we could begrudgingly watch you carry your mini fridge up the stairs and not help you. But yeah, it was for germ spreading reasons and stuff like that, so I ultimately think that it was a better choice for us not to have volunteers doing that this year, and I felt completely safe working this event for 3 days in a row, talking to students, talking to parents. Everyone was pretty respectful. I'll get into the mask policy in just a second, but yeah, as a staff working this event, it was pretty non-stressful for me. I'm sure if I was moving in all of my stuff, it might be a bit more stressful, and if it was my first time ever away from my parents, it might be a lot more emotional. But yeah, that's my synopsis of the day. So as for the mask policy, this year everyone is required to wear a mask anytime they're indoors, as well as anytime that they are within 6 feet, not physically distanced from people outside. So you're allowed to have your mask off in your residence room, but only when you're by yourself. And anytime you're outside your residence room, you should have your mask on. This was more of a struggle for the parents than it was for the children, the students, because I don't know, I think that the students are pretty grateful to have a residence experience at all, and most of the parents were less understanding. So most of the staff recommendations were towards parents to put their masks on and not towards students, and luckily since then, since about the first week of people being in residence, we've had a lot less mask problems, and mostly people are complying with the rules, which is good, because if you don't comply, you shouldn't be living in residence, because eventually enough mask violations stacked up will get you kicked out. So yeah, if you can't wear a mask, I don't really recommend signing up for residence at Guelph, unless of course you do have an exemption, which the university does recognize. And then next I'll talk about vaccinations. This year the university did require all students and staff and visitors on campus to be vaccinated. This was a very, very recent development at the time that everyone was moving in, so it was just a little bit sad, because there were a couple of people that thought they were good to move in because they had their vaccine appointment scheduled, but they didn't have a vaccine in their arm yet, and they had to be turned away, and that's really, really frustrating. It must be awful for those poor people, but yeah, it was just the university policy. The policy came out at a really bad time. It was sort of like 2 days before everyone started moving into residence, but basically the policy was if you didn't have at least one vaccine and the other one scheduled, then you couldn't move in, you couldn't live on campus. So yeah, that's the policy currently. I'm not sure what the policy will be next year, but personally I feel much safer that that's the policy, and I know that all the people living around me are vaccinated, and I don't know, because I feel like more vaccinated people better, the less chances I have of getting sick, which is something that did happen my first year. In my first year here at Guelph, I lived in South, in Maritime, which is where I live now, and in the first 2 weeks of school, I got tonsillitis. In 2019, you didn't wear masks anywhere, so it was very easy, I guess, for germs to spread, and they used to call South residents the petri dish of the campus, because like I said, we've got 500 people living in one place, touching the same door handle every time they go in and out. So I got tonsillitis. It was really sucky. I had to miss a couple of classes for that. But anyway, moral of the story is, I feel safer now that everyone's vaccinated. Most people are wearing masks when they should be, and I feel like generally the hygiene of South has gotten better because of the masks, which is something that you can add to your docket of good things, I guess. I hope that this was helpful. I did want to show, because I am still at the University of Guelph and living in residence, the next side of the story as we move through the pandemic, and hopefully next year students will have a normal 2019 style move-in experience, because that was really fun for me, and I wish that everyone else could experience that like I did. I hope that this video is helpful to prospective students who are looking. I know there's lots of you watching. I really love it here at Guelph, and you can watch all of my other videos to see why. I will be updating some of those videos as we are sort of post-pandemic, kind of. Not really midst pandemic, but like developed. So the policies have changed a lot since my last videos, and I live in a different place now, so I can give you a different residence room tour, maybe a tour of the amenities at South as well, like I did in my East Village room tour. I encourage you to check out other videos, not just mine, about the University of Guelph, because obviously I love it here, but you do want to hear other sides of the story. Yeah, I hope that your college or university search is going well, and maybe we'll see you at Guelph sometime. Bye!